guys, I want to introduce to you our MSA Biologist Kelsey McGee. She's going to explain to you what the MSA has planned for the 2020 field season. I want to thank you for joining our science series and let you know that the next science speaker is going to be Antoin O'Sullivan, the MSA's Jack Fennedy Scholarship winner for 2020. And he's going to be talking about landscape structure, groundwater, and river temperatures in the Miramichi watershed. So don't forget to join us next week.
Anyone see that? I suppose you're all muted, so you can't answer me. All right, so good morning, everyone, and thanks for joining me today. I'm Kelsey McGee. If you don't know me, I'm the MSA Biologist, and I'm going to be running through our programs with you. So in these times of uncertainty with the COVID-19 issues, I'm really glad to have this opportunity to provide some insight on what the MSA has planned for our field programs and what that's all going to look like in 2020. So I'm going to be going through, for some reason she's not, there we go. I'm going to be going through each program one by one, starting with our known funded programs and then leading into programs with a bit more uncertainty around them. So like Kate said, save your questions till the end and we will get to them at that point. So I have 20 minutes and let's get to it. Okay, so I'm going to start with our striped bass spawning study. And I'm going to give you a bit of background on this one because it is one of our newer projects. This study began in the spring of 2018, where the MSA got together with the Northumberland Salmon Protection Association, Miramichi Watershed Management Committee, and the Department of Fisheries and Oceans to discuss one question. And that question was, where are the striped bass spawning? So as we know, the abundance of striped bass in the southern Gulf of St. Lawrence has increased significantly since the early 2000s, with this estimated spawner abundance in 2019 being approximately 300,000 fish, similar to last year's. So even though the abundance has been growing, the Northwest Miramichi estuary has still remained the only confirmed successful spawning location for this population. And there had been no effort to sample other estuaries to see if they were possibly contributing to the increase in this population size. Because of that fact, the causative status for this population of bass was and still is today listed as a population of special concern, with the last assessment being in 2012. So we thought about this and we were like, well, historically the bass were believed to have spawned in the Nipisiguit, the Tabasintac, Miramichi, Cushbequac, Restigouche rivers, and in the St. Lawrence River. So that brought us to our objective, and that was that the MSA was going to sample 3 rivers in the southern Gulf of St. Lawrence for the presence of striped bass eggs, larvae, and juveniles, which is exactly what we did. All right, so the sampling occurs each year in 3 rivers, the Northwest Miramichi, the Southwest Miramichi, and the Tabasintac River, with the Northwest Miramichi being our control site. And this is because we already know that the bass are spawning there successfully. This happens when residents in the area let us know when they see spawning activity, which is usually early to mid-June, and then we go out in our little boat and trawl with a plankton net for about 2-minute intervals. After these 2 minutes, the contents of the net are washed down into a canister at the end, and then that is put into a container and brought back to our lab to be examined for the presence of eggs and larvae. So in our first picture here, or in this picture right here, I suppose you guys can't see me pointing to the screen, and shows a sample from a trawl from last year on the Southwest Miramichi. So you can see all those little striped bass larvae there, but I don't see any eggs in that picture. That's a little air bubble, but there were eggs in that sample as well. Now, our first year of this study, we only did this plankton survey, but last year we added a new component. To strengthen our survey, we returned to those same 3 rivers later on in the season, so mid to late July, to beach seine for juvenile bass. And as you see in this picture here, the net is dragged out in a horseshoe and is then pulled in slowly from both sides and the fish are placed in this canister here where they're all counted and the striped bass were measured. And here's a little picture of one of our little striped bass buddies on a measuring board. I have a little video for you guys here, just of the contents of that seine, and it was our biggest striped bass juvenile catch actually for the whole time that we sampled. And this is, so I'm just gonna turn this off, and you can see all these little bass floating around in here. So that was pretty surprising to us, seeing as that was basically, I think it was our second attempt at seining for juveniles, and we were pretty surprised to see that large amount on the Tabasin tag. This year, our plan is to continue the project for at least one more year. We received funding from the Wildlife Trust Fund to implement this program. We believe that a 3-year study is really going to solidify our results and make more of an impact on the cost. Okay, moving on, our stocking program. So we plan to continue our stocking program in 2020 and believe that we have approximately 1 million first feeding fry to stock in the late spring, early summer. Now, right now, our hatchery staff are out there being super busy. The eggs are being cleaned, counted, and are soon going to be placed into upwelling incubation boxes. And after that's done, we're actually going to have a definitive count of how many eggs we have. Stay tuned, we will keep you updated and let you know how many eggs that we are actually going to be putting out. Once these eggs are hatched, they're going to feed from their yolk sac until those are depleted. And then when that happens, they're actually placed on a very strict feeding schedule until they're ready to be stocked. We have fry from both wild and hatchery raised fish to stock this year once our licenses are approved. Now, for those of you who don't know, if you're new or you're watching from YouTube, the Miramichi Salmon Conservation Center is actually the oldest continuously run Atlantic salmon hatchery in North America. And it's been stocking fish throughout the Miramichi and beyond, really, because we used to send eggs everywhere, since 1873. So that's 147 years of making sure that these little guys are getting a chance at life. And here's a neat little video of us stocking the canes a couple years back. You can see there's the bucket up here, and those little guys are all swimming to freedom. So something pretty cute to see. Where's my next button? There we go. All right, moving on to our electrofishing program. Okay, there we go. So the MSA has been electrofishing the watershed for many, many years to assess juvenile densities of Atlantic salmon. We typically focus on areas upstream of beaver dams that we had removed the previous fall, as well as previously stocked sites from the 2 years before. We also assist DFO with their historic baseline sites in the fall. So we send a crew of 2 people out with them, and they also get densities done. Funding was approved from the New Brunswick Wildlife Trust Fund for this program, and we are planning to continue it this year. On to our beaver dam management. Beaver dams impede access to critical spawning habitat for adult salmon, which is why we go out and notch them during the fall to allow the salmon access to pass through. We don't take out the entire beaver dam. So as you can see in this picture, we just notch a section, and this doesn't displace the beavers at all. We usually have to revisit active sites multiple times during the 4 to 5 weeks of the program. So in recent years, we've actually had to fund this program ourselves, which means that that instead of having a robust program with a helicopter survey to see where the dams are for the watershed, we've focused our efforts on areas that were historically notorious for high beaver dam activity. So far, the plan is to continue this program this year. However, since it is a self-funded program, we really need to monitor the COVID-19 situation and then reassess later in the season to see if the funds are there. So stay tuned. We will let you know later on in the summer if this program will be getting going forward. All right, that's it for our known funded programs. And now we're getting to a little bit of uncertainty here, but we'll press on. So the Atlantic Salmon Federation is continuing its tracking program on the northwest and southwest branches of the Miramichi River in 2020. What they do is they surgically place acoustic tags in the body cavities of 80 fish on both the northwest and the southwest rivers. And this is the 7th year of the project on the northwest Miramichi and the 7th year that we've actually been assisting with them. But the Atlantic Salmon Federation has been tracking on the southwest Miramichi for 19 years, since 2001. So we've gathered a lot of great information from this program, and we hope that it continues, for years to come. So what do they do in this program? Receivers are placed throughout the rivers to the outer bay. So once the fish are released from the tagging sites, which are, you can see, the pink dots on this map. Now, this is a map from the receiver sites from last year. We actually had 2 tagging locations on the northwest and 1 on the southwest up here at Rocky Brook. So when these fish are released, they make their way out to the ocean, and as they pass each receiver, their tags are picked up at those receivers, and we can track their movements on their journey all the way out through the river, out of the outer bay, and into the Gulf of St. Lawrence. And they typically leave out through the Strait of Belle Isle. Here we have 2 receiver lines here. Sometimes they leave out the Cabbage Strait, so we have a bunch of receiver lines and we can monitor them. It's pretty neat to look at the data of this program, because you can see where the fish actually stop being picked up, or if they're picked up by a predator, you can see a drastic change in their movement. So you could have a fish down, say in Chatham, they've made their way all the way from the northwest down to Chatham, and then suddenly the next day they're all the way up in Millerton. So you know that that's been picked up by a predator. They're not making their way all the way back up there. Now the MSA, like I said, has assisted on this project for 7 years, and we hope to do so again. However, we didn't receive funding from the Atlantic Salmon Conservation Foundation to put the smolt wheel out. Therefore, we do need to find funding from other sources in order to implement this. But we're looking into that. All right, so kind of a new thing this year, just to play on one of our old projects, is our smolt collections. I feel like I'm talking a little too fast, so I'm going to slow down a little bit. Due to the critically low numbers of returning adult salmon to the Miramichi River in 2019, and for those of you who don't know, or who are just joining us from somewhere else in Canada, the numbers for the returns in 2019 were the lowest in recorded history. And we believe that a different approach to our broodstock collection is in order because of this. In the past few years, it's been getting progressively more difficult to collect our broodstock in the fall, and that's mainly been because there are little to no adult salmon or grouse in the pools that we seine, which in the past have been plentiful with these fish. As well as sometimes when we go out, the water levels are very high and it's too dangerous for us to go and do the collection. We're really concerned with these low adult numbers, but we still want a robust stocking program in order to help get fry into the river. However, we do want these remaining wild adults that come back to spawn to be able to do so naturally. So we're proposing that a smolt collection be done for broodstock and that they are brought back to the hatchery here in South Esk to be raised into adults. So our plan is to place a smolt wheel on the Northwest River, the Little Southwest River, the Dungarvan River, and the Southwest River in order to implement this program. Now, 500 fish will be collected per river, except the Southwest River, Southwest Miramichi, which may be 1,000 just due to the large size of the river. The time to be proactive is now with the low salmon returns. It is so important that we start gene banking while we can, and I really think this project is going to be a good step forward for that. Last year, we reintroduced the smolt estimate on the Northwest and Little Southwest rivers in order to annual production of Atlantic salmon smolt. This was a joint venture undertaken by the MSA, the North Shore Micmac District Council, and the Atlantic Salmon Federation. Now, there are some great videos on our YouTube page that I really encourage you guys to go check out after this, showing how to tag salmon and explaining the estimate right out on the river. But basically what we do is we install a smolt wheel on both the Northwest and Little Southwest rivers to operate as tagging platforms. And these wheels are fished every single day, and every single fish that is caught in the wheel is counted, recorded, and then released. Up to 100 smolt each day are tagged, and then they're trucked up 5 kilometers upriver to be released. We record how many recaptures we get a day as they make their way back down through the river. And then from that, we can throw it in a statistical equation and get an estimate on the smolt escapement from those rivers. Now, this information is very valuable for determining juvenile biomass production for both of these rivers, and it also is beneficial coupled with adult assessments on the Miramichi to enable calculations of marine survival and freshwater productivity. Unfortunately, we did not receive funding from the Atlantic Salmon Conservation Foundation for this project, but we do hope to implement it with the help of our collaborating organizations. As of right now, the status of the project is unknown, so we will get back to you on that. Moving along. Oh, sorry guys, that was probably in the way the whole time. Habitat restoration. So if you've been following the MSA for the last couple of years, you've probably noticed that in the past 7 years, the MSA has been conducting cold water habitat restorations, and we've done 10 of them within the Miramichi watershed, as you can see on our lovely map here. Going forward with this project, the North Shore Micmac District Council is going to be taking the lead on this, with the assistance of the MSA and ASF as collaborating partners. So they have received funding for 5 years to conduct 11 restoration sites. And in 2020, the plan is that 3 sites will be restored this year. So Wildcat and Sutherland Brook have had surveys done on them already and are go for construction once all the loose ends are tied up. But we are currently looking for another site to restore as well. So once that has been identified, the location, a survey will be done, and then we can get on to the construction. Now, since this project is happening and another organization has taken the lead on it, the MSA still wanted a cold water project that we could brand as our own. So we came up with this cold water habitat maintenance project. Now, this project is still up in the air because we did not receive. If it is implemented, we're going to be surveying and monitoring former cold water restoration sites to make sure that they are serving their purpose, as well as key cold water brooks under the warm water protocol. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be monitoring from the mouth of the brook up 1 kilometer to make sure that there are no obstructions that could be restricting access for juvenile fish to use. And we also want to make sure that there are no obstructions impounding water and causing that water to warm. Climate change is a very real issue, and we can see it affecting our river already. So we need to do all that we can to provide access to cold water sources to the main river for those fish to utilize. All right, so the last slide that I have here for you is actually our biggest unknown project for right now, and that involves the smallmouth bass eradication at Miramichi Lake. It may come to a point where smaller conservation groups need to take up the torch, more so than they already have been, to implement this eradication program. As of right now, the North Shore Micmac District Council has taken the lead on the fieldwork for this project, and we are unsure of what the MSA's participation is going to be, but we are willing and prepared to do what we must in order to get this situation under control. As you can't leave an invasive species problem out there, we've seen what happens. And that is all that I have for you guys today. I just want to make sure to let you guys know to keep an eye on our newsletter called The Leaper for updates on the program later in the season. If you're not subscribed to The Leader, you can check out our website. We can get you hooked up there. Or you could even put your email in the comment section on this Zoom call, and we can get you signed up for it. And yeah, I can take your questions now.
So if you have a question, just unmute yourself and you can go ahead.
I've got a question.
Yes, Nathan.
The smolt assessments for the Little Southwest and Northwest, those are really important. And I'm wondering what, like, ASCF didn't fund it, which is really disappointing and frustrating. But is there any backup plan that you have? Did you apply for other funding, or what are you thinking for those?
We didn't apply for other funding for that, but we're hoping if we get the licenses approved for our smolt collection for broodstock, that we can kind of piggyback the assessment on that project.
Okay.
The wheels will be out there.
Okay. I like your cold water maintenance program. I think it's really important to go back to those sites that were enhanced and monitor them. And every single one of them is going to be different, and it'll be really interesting to see exactly what worked well and what didn't, and we can feed that back into the designs of those 11 other sites.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how those sites actually progressed over the years and if they're working up to their standards.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Yes, Greg, you just got to unmute yourself. You have to unmute yourself, Greg.
There we go. So Kelly, are there other programs, funded or unfunded, that still require permits from DFO?
We're still waiting on all of our permits to come in. It's a process. There is 1 or 2 projects that I still have to put the permits in for, just because we were still getting locations for those projects, but we should hopefully hear by the end of April. It's usually when DFO.
So are you suggesting that every project requires a permit from DFO?
Every project requires a permit because it is a scientific project, and we are doing work on fish that are in the river. So they need to know exactly what we're doing and how those fish are going to be treated throughout the field season and the project.
I'll just make a personal comment that, you know, the sooner we throw those bums out of the province, the better.
Anyone else with a question? Or Greg, you're good?
Yes, thank you.
And if you do have any questions that you just come to later, you can always email me at kelsey@miramichisalmon.ca, and I'll try to answer them for you.
Great. All right. See you later.
Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on that notification bell so you can stay up to date with everything happening here at the MSA. Or, better yet, join our ranks and become an MSA member at www.miramichisalmon.ca.